Hi, friends. It's March 25th, 2024, a little after midnight, and I'm feeling a little emotional thinking about some conversations that I had this past weekend and just remembering how much my life has changed in the last 14 years, but I mean, really, the last 20 something years. And it's been a minute since I talked about some of my Me Too experiences, which I think some of those videos have been like blowing up a little bit lately. And so I wanted to just make a video talking about my life a little bit and why the conference and the community that I just attended are so important to me, but overall, mostly how, as a victim of severe trauma, I used to feel so hopeless about the future. I felt like my life was over. I can't tell you how many times I felt like my life was over. And there were times as a teenager, like I began to attempt to take my own life many times. And I had severe PTSD for over a decade of my life and continued to have other things like severe anxiety and depression and stuff. And now, finally, in the last 4 or 5 years of my life, really the last 3 years of my life, I feel like I have finally come through almost all of that. It was probably about a year and a half ago when I finally had this moment where I felt like the person I am now is who I should have been all along if I hadn't been so traumatized. Like I felt like the me, I felt more like the me I was before I was raped by my ex-stepfather. So, first, just to share a little bit about my life, I've been through a lot of shit. I grew up in poverty, um, I had experienced a lot of different abuse of different types. I was molested by a cousin as a toddler. I was repeatedly molested and orally raped by another cousin a little later as a child. Um, from the ages of the big thing was from the ages of 12 to 15. Was repeatedly raped by my ex-stepfather and manipulated and so many complex things. And like my parents divorced at a number on me, being split up and divided from my siblings. And then when it doesn't bother me now, I'm actually kind of proud of the things that my father did to help provide for me. But I was very aware of as a child, of being poor and of the fact that we would go to food banks or go scavenge in the garbage dump after it closed for scrap metal for money. I was very aware that my life did not match what was on TV, and that of a lot of my friends, and that would go without different utilities from time to time and stuff like that. I, when in high school, I didn't think college was even an option. And at the time I was growing up, man, I once wrote a paper in an English class. It was a short story about a girl that really wanted to go to college and but was too poor and all that kind of stuff, and she killed herself. That is how programmed I was growing up, that if I did not go to college, that basically I had no future. And that programming got me into a lot of trouble. I'll be paying student loans till I die, probably. Um, because, it was go to school or your life's over, and it took a lot of money to go to school and to be able to survive while in school. Anyways, because of all, to go back to the big thing, which was being repeatedly raped by my ex stepfather, I I came out about that, I think, in ninth grade, and then immediately started going through the legal process, which in some ways I think was more traumatic than the thing itself. The constantly being put on display, and the constant being judged, and the constant me worrying whether people believe me or not, because my honor and integrity have always been extremely important to me. And it went on and on for years. We began things when I was in the ninth grade, and we did not finally go to our final, because I was in court multiple times, our final court thing until the end of my senior year of high school. So, of course, I had been a pretty good student, and this completely screwed me up. Now that I'm older, I wish I would have pursued a civil case. I didn't want there to be any question of my integrity at the time I went through all of my legal stuff, so I didn't pursue any sort of compensation or anything, because I did not want that to. I did not want my integrity to be questioned. But because of everything that I went through, I definitely could have gotten scholarships and all of that kind of stuff had I not gone through the legal process and not messed myself up so much mentally that it affected every other aspect of my life. There are times that I regret doing that, because I feel like I re-traumatized myself. And I know I did it for the right reasons, because I didn't do it to punish my ex stepfather. I did it to stop him and to try and protect other people, because as the eldest of three siblings, and just as someone, I always wanted to be a champion for other people. My dream as a kid was to be a knight, King Arthur's table. I've always been the person that I want to stand up for other people and be a champion for them, for the people that can't speak out for themselves, or aren't strong enough to defend themselves, or don't know how. But man, doing that really messed me up. And when I got out of high school, I think I did give myself a semester off before I began school. But I was traumatized. I had severe PTSD for over 10 years of my life. I had night terrors. I had severe social anxiety and depression. I didn't know all the things that I had at the time. I knew that there was something wrong with me, but I didn't know how to ask for help. And the few times I did try to ask for help, people didn't understand what I was trying to communicate. Um, I remember vividly in the 10th grade, I used to be able to do math, and every now and then I can. I have to be in Rain Man mode these days to be able to do math, or to be able to do like complex analytical stuff like that. But I remember vividly in the 10th grade, I was very self-aware that my brain wasn't working right. And I remember this in my math class. I was in a geometry class, and oh God, I tried so hard. I tried so hard to understand what was being taught to me, and it didn't look complex. I tried so hard to hear the words that the teacher was saying, and to process what those words meant in my brain, and to see the things on the board. And it's like they would come in, I saw them and I heard them, but my brain wouldn't keep them, like it just flowed through me. And I tried to explain that to counselors and stuff. It's like I'm having trouble processing. I don't know what's wrong with me. I used to be able to do this, but I can't. I can't do this right now, and I don't understand why I can't do this. And I was so afraid. I remember I had trouble, and I'm now very aware that this was part of my PTSD. I had so much trouble waking up in the mornings. I could not, I failed multiple classes just because I could not get there consistently. Um, and I was so hard on myself for not being able to function on a schedule that other people functioned on. You know, thank God now for online asynchronous learning because it was really freaking hard, and part of why I got almost $100,000 in undergrad student loans because it took me 10 years to get through undergrad. And I was the first person in my family to go to school. I didn't have any guidance. I was still traumatized and suffering all of these things. And I didn't have anyone to help me. I didn't have an advisor or a mentor. And I was too scared. And most of the time, I was too scared to ask for help. I didn't know who to ask for help. I'm just really fucking lucky that there were a few professors in my life that inspired me to continue and who didn't make me feel like crap for failing over and over again. God, I was freaking embarrassed, and man, I didn't want to. I really didn't want to show my face to these people who I admired so much. But there, you know, thank God I have a defiant spirit, and I kept trying. But I mean, people that know me now that didn't know me back then. I mean, even people that knew me back then, like I masked so much shit. Like I guarantee you, I'm on the spectrum. Like I'm totally an autistic savant, you know, and I didn't realize that until a few years ago. I go through periods where I have trouble doing things, lots of things, really basic things. And then I go through periods where I'm pretty sure I could solve almost every problem in the world if I could find the right people that would listen, you know, would let me listen to what their problems are and would actually listen to a different perspective or allow me to help connect them with others that can help them, because the one gift that I know I have is pattern recognition and being able to connect dots that other people can't connect. So I'm very proud of that, and it's taken a long time for me to get to the point where I'm confident enough to be able to say what my strengths are. I was talking with someone a few days ago, and we were talking about curation and how we would put things together and stuff like that. And I was very confident when I said, "Well, you know, this isn't how I would have done it. I think I would have done it this way for X, Y, Z reasons." And I don't know if they're just joking, but I think they called me up and they're like, "Well, you're very sure of yourself." And I'm like, "Well, you know, once you've studied and done things so long, you know, hopefully we can all get to the point one day where we can confidently acknowledge what our strengths are in addition to our weaknesses." And man, I suck at a lot of things, but there are things that I'm very good at, and I have been giving myself permission the last few years to admit that I am very good at certain things and that I am talented at things because, and I don't know if this is a cultural thing in the South, if it's unique to me. I have a feeling it is a universal thing, especially as a woman, we're taught to be submissive and not to take credit for things and to be in the background and all of this kind of stuff. And fuck the patriarchy and the cultures that we grew up in for making us feel like we have to make ourselves small so that other people can feel comfortable. Like, I'm pretty sure I have at least a couple dozen TED Talks I could give on anything. The problem for me is separating all of these things because I see so clearly how every freaking thing in my life and in the world is connected. And it's very hard to distill that down sometimes when you can so clearly see how the big picture all fits together. So anyways, I was a freaking mess after all my trauma, and there's so much. There's so many things. I didn't know how to ask for help. I experienced so many different issues, and I've become even more aware of some of these issues in the last half year because I have a friend that has severe PTSD, and seeing what they're going through has helped me see what I went through from a new perspective and connect more dots, realizing that, oh, this trouble that I had with sleep and night terrors and anxiety and depression, the trouble I had with my brain not functioning right and with being afraid to ask for help and so many things. I can see them experiencing all of that. And I know that they are not any less of a person, that they are not less intelligent or anything like that, that they have a mental illness that they don't necessarily have to suffer from their entire life, that there is hope, there is help. And the reason I wanted to make this video and share all this is for other people that have been traumatized. And I mean, honestly, we've all been through trauma. It's just some of us have been hurt more deeply or have experienced different degrees of it. And for those of you like me who have been through trauma that made you question your existence and feel like there was no hope in your life, because I remember very vividly feeling like I had, like, what was the reason? What was the point in me going on? I had a conversation with someone this past weekend, someone else that makes work, about the trauma that they experienced, and about how it affects us. And, I shared with them that so many years of my life, I wish I had been murdered instead of raped. I feel like if I had been killed, if my life had been ended, I wouldn't have had to suffer as much as I suffered, because I've suffered a very long time. And in some ways, I continue to suffer from what I experienced. It has impacted my life in a profound way that has hurt me and caused me setbacks and put me behind my peers. However, I'm defiant and I'm an optimist, and I was always determined that I will not let what happened to me destroy the rest of my life. So I found ways to, remain hopeful despite feeling like life is pointless or I should just give up so much. But I'm so proud of young me for loving life enough to not actually go all the way, because she tried. She started to do things many times. And even when um, it wasn't a live attempt, um, she did a lot of self harm in order to cope. And it's just so crazy to think about how different my life is now compared to then. I mean, I remember vividly thinking about the future and dreaming about the future. And man, for the longest time, my dreams were just to have a college degree, a career, and to own my own home. And, when I finally achieved those things, it's like, well, what next? And thankfully, I've continued to, have a what's next. But I know what it's like to feel hopeless. And I just want to share that life gets better, that it can get better. It can get so much better. It can become so wonderful. It can become so wonderful that that you cry, or you feel constantly on the edge of tears because you vividly remember what it was like to not have hope. And you just can't believe that even if it took decades, you can't believe that you finally made it to a time and a space in which you feel happy and successful, at least in some ways, that you finally made it to a point in time where you don't lock yourself in a closet and cry because you're afraid, or where you get to a point where you can make a phone call without having a meltdown, and where you no longer pace back and forth at every sound and look out the window to see if there's someone driving by your house because you were stalked for years of your life. When you get to a point where you're no longer afraid of being attacked in the middle of the night, when you get to a point where you can actually sleep, sleep is so important when you've gone through trauma. My experience, that's one of the things that gets so messed up, and yeah, like, I just really want to share that, like, life can get better. And I also want to share that I'm here for you, that there are lots of people that are here for you. And if you're watching this, you're either someone that has experienced trauma, you're someone that knows, you all know people that have experienced trauma, whether you realize it or not. Or hopefully you're someone that is curious enough to want to help and be supportive of other people and help them in their healing journeys, because the world is in a state right now, and now, because of the pandemic, we have all experienced intense trauma. But there are lots of traumas, and they affect us differently. But like a lot of it is the same. And hopefully now, because of the pandemic, people in the world can better understand what it's like to live in a constant state of fear and terror, and to not know what's going to come next. And hopefully we can all start being more supportive of one another and help each other heal. And for me, I hope to eventually be able, I don't know exactly how. I share my stories. That's the thing that I do. I share my stories so that people know that they're not alone, so people can have an insight into what this kind of experience in life is like for someone else. and to help raise awareness about all kinds of things, but especially sexual trauma, because it's an epidemic. It's an insidious epidemic in our society and the world that is so much worse than the statistics report. I guarantee you, 4 out of every 5 people have been sexually molested or raped or assaulted. And a lot of them are so traumatized from it that they don't remember it. But I guarantee you, I've got a lifetime of experience, not just my own personal experience, but because I am open about my story, people talk to me, and also I talk to others. I've I started to interview professionals as part of my grad school work. Unfortunately, I thought my Me Too stuff was going to be my thesis work, but when I started writing research papers and living in it all the time, it re-triggered night terrors and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I can't live in it every day. Like, I can talk about it pretty often, but I can't fully immerse myself in it right now without re-triggering, which was really interesting. It's interesting also. I want you to know that do not be surprised in your life when you go through a long period of time and you're okay, but then suddenly things come back and are fresh again and you have to reprocess them. That's one of the things that that I have learned is that whenever we go through major life transformations, could be marriage, the birth of a child, graduation, a new job, can be anything, that our brain begins to reprocess the other big things in our life in order to understand how that piece of the puzzle now fits into your life. And it can be a little distressing, but if you have warning that that's going to happen and you understand why that happens, you're better prepared to get the help you need when you need it. So, there are so many things I would like to share and to say, but for this video, I just really wanted to let you know that, man, guys, just because I've made it to a point in my life, like a really good point in my life, it does not mean that I don't still vividly remember what it was like to suffer and all that struggle. And also for those people that just are curious, because I've met people in the so a few years ago when I started talking to a professional about the fact that I'm pretty freaking sure that I know, like, I'm autistic, and I know it 100%. It's just that the way that it was brought about to me, like, the first person to tell me that I was autistic was God, and a lot of people don't believe in God, so it's like how I didn't actually believe him the first time he told me, but he kept repeating it, and then finally I had a Rain Man mode, and I connected the dots, and I was like, oh, yeah, this makes a lot more sense now. Yeah, this makes sense. All these communication issues and stuff, and right now he wants me to brag on myself because he did tell me, he's like, first I'm a professional masker, guys, but I didn't cure myself, but I figured out ways to overcome a lot of things and help myself, fit in fairly normally. It's just the last 4 or 5 years, I'm tired of masking and trying to fit in normal for everybody else. I just want to be myself. But but when I first talked to my psychiatrist, he's like, but you communicate so well. Well, I've had a lifetime of working at it, and despite having challenges, I am in fact incredibly fucking brilliant in some areas, not in all areas, but there are things that I'm very, very good at, and I, in some ways, am a master of self-manipulation in order to help get myself from point A to point B, and I have always been incredibly self-aware, and I have literally been working on myself and psychologically examining and manipulating myself since I was a small child. And I have to say that now, not really to brag on myself now, but because now I kind of like the different times of my life were different me's. And I am absolutely amazed and so proud of young me, like, and of everything, of how she survived and processed everything, and which allowed me to become the me that I am now. And now that I feel like I'm finally in a place where I'm mostly happy, healthy, and functioning adult, and I've had a few years since I was severely depressed, and I feel hopeful that even if it comes back, that it'll pass. Now I feel it's my duty to go make all of her dreams come true, because she absolutely deserves for all of her dreams to come true, for weathering what she did and allowing us to get to this point. And I'd really like to encourage those of you that have been through trauma to try to reconnect with your inner child, to reconnect with who you were before you experienced trauma, to remind yourself of who you were and how you were, and to remind yourself that you are not a failure and you are not defective, that you have been traumatized, you have been injured, and that there are ways to heal. And yes, you will have scars, but you can heal, and your life can get better. It can get so much better. It can become fucking amazing. It really can. It really can. It might take a while, but it's worth it. It's so worth hanging in there and weathering through the storms and stuff. And I hope that as more people get help sooner or come into contact with others like me that have survived all the crap and have come out through it on the other side, I hope that it gives you the motivation to keep going. But I also really hope that it helps you heal faster. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have anyone. I had to, I had myself, and I was very lucky that despite me worrying that they would not, that my family believed me and supported me. Now, they didn't know how to help all of the psychological issues that I had, but at least they believed and they supported me when I told them about what happened to me, and they helped walk me through the legal process and things like that. And then later I got really lucky that I met my best friend and my husband, who also is very eccentric and has his own traumas and his own things, but who compliments me, and who helped take really good care of me during the many times in my life that I was not able to take good care of myself, and vice versa. We take care of each other in different ways, even if it's not a romantic partner. I highly advise, like, find friends and create your own families, whatever that structure might be, where you support and help one another, because it's really hard. I don't know how anyone gets through this life alone. Like, I used to think of myself as a loner, and I do still really like being alone a lot of the time, but we all need community. At least we need a community to come back to when we're not, going and hiding in order to deal with the things that we have to deal with. So, anyways, feel free to ask me any questions about anything, because sexual assault and trauma are things that should be talked about. And they are things that people should not feel afraid to talk about them or to ask about them. Now, there are a lot of people that don't feel like sharing their stories or that can't talk about it because it re traumatizes them. But when you meet people like me that are willing to talk about it, we want to talk about it because we want to raise awareness. We want you to freaking ask us questions. We want you to ask us hard questions. I want you to ask them because it helps me process things. And I enjoy helping other people understand things. And as an artist and a self proclaimed scientist, I am very interested in exploring the complexities of being a human being and trauma and all the things that we process. And yeah, there's lots to unpack. So, guys, please be supportive of people when they come out about something happening to them. I guarantee, like, you could go look at statistics, the statistics of how many people actually fib about being assaulted are very low. And I can tell you why that is. Because for me, and I think I can safely speak for a lot of people, admitting that we've been assaulted or that something has happened to us, speaking up about it, is in some ways more terrifying. It's incredibly terrifying. If someone is brave enough to say that something has happened to them, something has happened to them and they need your support, they need your help. And I'm going to call some of y'all out. I mean, probably not y'all that are watching this, but those people that aren't supportive, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because that's what I like to do for others and say that the reason that they don't support people is because they're in denial, because either A, they don't want to believe that the world is such a horrible place that things happen. They don't want to believe that their loved ones or other people experience these hard things. They don't want to be that close to this kind of trauma. They don't want to believe that their brother or whoever was a predator that did something so awful. Or, in most cases, they don't want to believe it because if they believed someone else, then they would have to face the fact or remember that they experienced something very similar and they're so hurt that they can't do that. But running away from your fears and the things that has happened to you not only sets you back, it hurts other people. We are all responsible for facing our own traumas, for dealing with our own triggers. It's not the world's job or responsibility to adapt to us. Now, it's wonderful when it does, but ultimately, we need to seek healing. We need to encourage healing. We don't need to put band-aids on things and just let that wound stay there. We need to actually clean the wound, and cleaning the wound can be painful. You've got to get all of the poison out, or that shit will fester and it will destroy you. So, of course, that's my opinion, but I'm pretty confident about it. I've thought on it a really long time. I've done a lot of research. I've got firsthand experience of multiple things and lots of experience listening to other people's stories and talking to professionals and stuff. I don't need a fucking degree to, like in this area to tell you that, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right about why people aren't supportive of this sort of thing. And The other thing I want to say before I end this is um, I've done a lot of things to heal, but one, the two things that I credit the most with my healing, aside from having someone in my life that created a safe space for me. And it's important to be in a safe space. If you are not in a safe space, if you are not surrounded by people that believe you and support you, you need to go to a different space, even if that's scary. Like, get away from those people. You need to put yourself somewhere where you feel safe and where you feel like you are safe to speak when you can. And anyway, so the things that I've done is, first, when I was a little kid, hearing something along the lines of, if you tell yourself a lie long enough, you'll begin to believe it. Now, what we could call this, I kind of did this in a weird way, and I was like, you know what? Well, I'm going to lie to myself and for my own good. So for years and years and years and years and years, I would tell myself, I didn't feel it, but I tell myself, you're awesome, like I'm awesome, or I can do the thing, when I felt like I couldn't, or when I wasn't able to do the thing, I'd be like, you can do it, you just got to keep trying. But I'd tell myself that I was awesome. I'd tell myself, all kinds of things. Now I think you could just do positive affirmations, but for me, that really helped. It helped because, we're basically computers, guys. Computers were modeled after us. You need to reprogram your brain, and the best way to reprogram your brain is through repetition. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Repeat it, write it, feel it over and over and over again until it becomes part of you. And then the other big thing for me was 100% studying art and design. Studying art and design helped me heal because it helped me understand the world in a new way. It gave me a new language, and it allowed me to understand language. You know what the number one language in the world is? You know what the most common language in the world is? It's visual language. And being able to understand visual language gave me back a sense of control over my life and my mind. And that's one of the worst parts of being assaulted for most people, is that loss of control. Not only did it give me a way to feel a sense of control again, it also gave me an expressive outlet. And I do feel it's very important to have a creative outlet to express yourself. And it's extra good if it's also a physical outlet or engages you physically. You want to engage as many senses as possible, so not just your mind. Like ceramics is really good because it's tactile and there's smells and stuff. Painting, drawing, like anything like that. So many things, like the last few years, last year, dancing has become a creative outlet for me, and making videos from it. So it's not just physical, there's an artistic and a design element in it. Like those sort of things are really helpful, which is why we need art in schools, because everyone's been traumatized. And if we could help them process it and heal from it and give them a way to express it. And also if we could encourage people when they try to make work about their trauma, if we could support them, that'd be really great. If you don't support people that are trying to process their trauma, you're part of the problem and you should retire. So, yes, it's okay for you not to understand how to talk to someone about their trauma and what they're doing, but you should support them and allow them to express it naturally. And just, like if they're a student, just help guide them into polishing it, or help guide them into processing it, or help connect them with the people that are more suited to talk to them about what they're experiencing and to help them process and benefit from their expression of it. So, all right, 45 minutes. All right, I'm gonna stop now. So, guys, be cool. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope it helped you in some way. And if it did, please let me know how it did. And if I can help you in some way, reach out. Might take me a little bit to get back to you, but just comment, email, carol@carolrecord.com, and I'll get back to you, and I'll help connect you with what resources I'm aware of that I think might help you. So.